So hope that's warmed you up a bit to see what we're doing here. What we're going to do now is switch over to some panels and have some people tell us a little bit about what they think the future holds. And to do that, I'm very pleased to say that we have with us Kate Russell, who... This isn't working, is it, Femi? That's what it is. Thank you, Alan. Kate Russell, who's a broadcaster and journalist, who's a great friend of Tech4Good and has co-hosted the awards with me for 3 years now, and is just a brilliant person to host these conversations. Kate, do you want to come and join us? And the next slide is the list of panellists.
I'll let you. I think we've probably only got the questions and then. So thank you so much for having me here again, to Ian and BT, and of course to AbilityNet. It's always an absolute pleasure to be here. This is an opportunity for us to celebrate the good in technology instead of the members of the media normally cursing technology. So this is a real opportunity for me. Femi, you are so inspirational. I actually thought I was quite a high achiever, and now I'm feeling a little bit depressed. But no, and in the spirit of celebrating all the wonderful things that people do with technology, we are going to give you the opportunity during these panel sessions to meet some of previous winners, as well as some other companies who are doing really amazing things. So please welcome my first panel to the stage. If you would like to come and take a seat and join us, we've got Andrew Bastawrous, who is the Peak Vision and winner of Digital Health Award in 2014. We have Giles Rhys Jones, What 3 Words, winner of BT Ingenious Award in 2015. Paul Miller, CEO of Bethnal Green Ventures. We've got Bhavagaya, who you saw in the video earlier, Bhavagaya Bakshi, See the Signs, winner of the Digital Health Award in 2017. Jon Bray from Alphr, and Sandeep Raithatha, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Brilliant. BT TSO, Head of Innovation Central. Please welcome to the stage. Okay, so as you can see from the theme of the panel today, where is technology going? What is the future? So just a little question for you here early on a Monday morning. I mean, it is kind of a huge question, but what I'd like to do first, for those of us in the audience who perhaps don't know the companies or the people, if we could just sort of like run down the line, introduce who you were of that long list of names that I just read off, and perhaps just give us a few words about sort of your company or your position, and then maybe round up with what you think is the sort of topic we should be talking about today. What is going to be the key topic? So we'll start at this end and just run down the line, if you may.
Thank you. My name's Andrew. I'm an eye surgeon and co-founder and CEO of Peak Vision. We use mobile technology to bring access to sight restoring treatment across low and middle income countries. And since I was here in 2014, when we were 3 people, we're now 24 people working in 7 countries. Where do I see technology and the future? I actually think we've got to start with compassion first and people. Technology is an amplifier of anything, good or bad. So I see that technology comes second to people. And how do we make sure that we build in compassion and trust into the products and services that we are distributing? And that is something for me that's incredibly important. Because there is definitely a role for technology, but whichever way we use it, it will expand our reach and amplify the effect. So let's make sure it's a good one.
And before we move on, just in 3 words maximum, I mean, I know it's impossible, what's the future, because there are so many branches, but what for you is the core kind of advances in technology happening at the moment?
I think the future's already arrived. It's just very unevenly distributed. So I would like to see more of what already exists in places that don't yet have it.
Brilliant. That was that a William Gibson quote, I think.
It's someone else's that I stole.
Yeah. Future's already here, just not widely distributed. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay.
So I'm Giles. I'm CMO of What 3 Words. And we've come up with a very simple way to talk about location. We've divided the world up into 57 trillion 3 meter by 3 meter squares, and we've given each one of those squares a 3-word address. We've done it in 26 different languages now, and we're rolling out more and more. We've got a free app that people are using to find their friends at festivals and events. But then we've got code that people are integrating to their own services. So we're being used by the UN, we're being used by the Red Cross. The Mexican government used us recently in their when the earthquake hit in Mexico City to help the kind of relief efforts there. Since we won a few years ago, when we were 5 people, we're now 50. We've had investment from Intel Capital and Mercedes-Benz. On the Mercedes-Benz thing, one of the things we're particularly interested in is human-to-machine interaction and input, and voice is increasingly becoming the way that people are entering details and data into machines. And for us, even though voice recognition will get better and better, the underlying issue of bad addressing is still a real major problem. I don't know if everybody found the location today very easily, but when I typed in BT Tower into Google, the pin dropped in the center of the building. And I spent 2 or 3 minutes wandering around trying to find the entrance. Now that was frustrating for me, as there's a couple of people here who seem to have exactly the same problem. And this is the best addressed city and the best addressed country in the world, and you still can't find it. So it took me 2 minutes to find the entrance. If I'm a delivery driver, I'm doing that 200 times a day. That's a significant efficiency problem. If I'm a first responder, that the issues could be critical. So we are working on voice with Mercedes-Benz. So this year you'll be able to get into a Mercedes-Benz car, say 3 words, and it knows precisely where you want to go. It will recognise it, and it will drive you to that spot.
And Giles, in 3 words, an appropriate number of words for you, really, isn't it? The future of technology. Okay.
So I think the only way that we can, no idea what the future of technology is, the only way we can do it is through measurable innovation. We employ the 80-20 rule, so we spend 20% of our time and effort looking at things that we know work and work well, and then we spend 20% of our time looking at blue sky, out of the box, really different things, because by doing that you can potentially uncover where it might go.
Brilliant, thank you. I have to say, I discovered What 3 Words several years ago. As you know, I reviewed it on BBC Click. And I live in a two-bed maisonette, and I have 3 separate addresses in my home. So, I have friends around and order beer from the living room, and they know exactly where to bring it. It's perfect.
Tech4Good.
Okay, Paul.
Hello. Can you hear me okay? Is that all right?
Yes.
My name's Paul, and I help run Bethnal Green Ventures, and we're investors in Tech4Good. So over the last 5 years, we've invested in and funded just over 100 Tech4Good ventures. They typically come to us at the idea stage or a prototype, just with a small team of people, and hopefully grow into something like these guys. And we invest really in 4 themes in Tech4Good, so around health, education, environmental sustainability, and democracy. And yeah, super excited about what's going on in Tech4Good. I think really we are in that kind of application and change phase of technology, of digital technology. If you go back and think about like previous technological revolutions, actually, there's a phase where people adopt them, where people start to use them, and then they start to really apply them in ways that nobody really thought of, and then you get a social change because of that. So when things are widespreadly adopted, then you start to see what social change is possible. The one I always hark back to is, when James Watt invented the steam engine, little did he know that probably 100 years later that would lead to us all having weekends and holidays. It wasn't until that technology was widespread in terms of us being able to transport ourselves and move ourselves to the seaside, and factories were able to sort of turn themselves on and off, that you had that real technological infrastructure that allowed us to have real social change that was positive for us. And I think that's where we're at now, actually, with digital technology. We're at the stage where we can maybe change the way that society is organised for the better through these technologies.
It's interesting because I guess that analogy has there's echoes of truth.
I don't know that.
I'm not going to say her name again, but she's down there. Okay, I know that now. Thank goodness none of you are named Alex, because that could get difficult. So the weekend analogy has it's kind of got echoes in truth today, in terms of we're all worried about AI and robotics basically killing jobs, but maybe 100 years from now, we'll all have 5-day weekends and 2-day working weeks. And that would be the norm, right? Again, tech for good. Right. Thank you so much. Okay.
Hi, so my name is Bhavagaya. Our journey started 1 year ago. I'm a doctor by background, and actually the idea behind what we set out to do actually came from a patient that we lost to late diagnosis of cancer. And we came to realize that actually half of all cancers are diagnosed late, and as a result, 80% of patients will go on to die from that cancer. So for us as doctors, we felt the need to go out and solve this problem. And we then founded See the Signs, essentially an AI-based tool which is able to identify patients at the earliest and most curable stage of the disease. And through this journey, it's been amazing to see the power that this technology has in being able to identify patients. And it's currently being used and actually has been able to demonstrate this in real time. I guess where technology is going, last century, we unlocked the genome, and I think this century will unlock your genome, and personalised medicine really is what we're seeing in healthcare. And I think AI and technology really probably has the furthest to go within healthcare, and it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Okay, Jon.
Hi, my name's Jon Bray. I write for the technology website Alphr.com. We write about all the latest developments in tech and science in tech and tech in society. For myself, I'm mainly a products guy. I write about the latest phones and tablets and laptops and the technologies that are making their way into those things. I've just come back from MWC last week, so I'm a bit phone blind right now. In terms of the way that I see the future in technology going, certainly in the immediate future, I think it's all going to be about AI and how we manage the movement towards that kind of neural processing in our devices, in the servers, in the cloud, and sort of and how we use that really. You've seen it move a lot from things like Alexa and Siri, and it's starting to move into.
You did it. Okay, she calmed down. It's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. and starting to move into our local devices. I think that's basically the main sort of trend right now.
Yeah. So off device and more into just sort of like a.
Into all of our lives.
Yeah.
Everyone's got an Echo device, haven't they?
I think so. I've got the Google Home and the Echo, so that's an interesting.
Extra confusing.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, Sandeep.
Thank you. So it's Sandeep Raithatha, and I head up our innovation team in BT. And our role is really to help BT innovate and create new differentiated products and services. And we do this in a number of ways. So we crowdsource ideas from a large workforce of over 100,000 employees and get them to think about new ways to innovate, and they submit and share their ways of working. And then we also reach out and work with the startup community here in the UK with theme-based competitions, as was mentioned earlier, called the BT Infinity Lab. So we're running competition at the moment on AI, looking for innovative startups that can help BT and some of our customers. And then finally, I also look at innovative tech across UK, Europe, and Israel. So those are the three regions where we try and find innovation and bring them to BT.
So if you had to sort of pitch your tent in one camp in terms of the future of technology, which would it be?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, actually. And I was also at the mobile conference last week as well. So a whole week looking at new innovative tech. And the biggest takeaway there is, 5G is almost real now. So we all have 4G and smartphones connected with, really good bandwidth today. But if you imagine the future, and over the next couple of years, we'll be introducing 5G, which will provide, ultra low latency, super fast speeds of up to 1 gigabits per second. And you can imagine the types of applications that can enable when you're connected to the internet and getting really quick responses and compute. But the other two I'd mention, if I could have three, and they're all acronyms, is Internet of Things, or IoT. That is pretty much everywhere. And over the next few years, everything will be connected. And AI, as an example, I think most services, as you'll see, even in our home or within the business, will be a lot more intelligent and reactive and learning very quickly as well. And that will be really interesting even for robotics or robotic process automation, as the types of roles and jobs we have will be different in the future as well.
Brilliant, very interesting. Okay, well, before we move on to these specific questions, as we do have an extra bonus member of the panel today, Alexa, what's the future of technology?
I don't know that one.
Well, at least she's honest. Okay, well, let's sort of like dig a little bit deeper into your sort of thoughts and processes. One of the interesting things for me is hearing sort of all of your sort of general answers to the question, what's the future of technology? Is it's really not about things anymore, is it? It's not about stuff, it's about concepts, it's about code, it's about bits of data rather than the machines that we use to process that data. And that's been a fundamental change over the last 10 years or so. You know, if I'd have asked you that question 5 years ago even, you would have said a piece of hardware, right? So do you think, Andrew, that's a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Anyone? It's just a thing. Well, how's augmented? Because augmented reality and AI is something that you really know about in terms of the way it's changing your work currently in the developing world, isn't it? Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Sure. We have a simple application on our vision test, which is a way of anybody in the world being able to measure vision as accurately as a doctor using the state-of-the-art equipment. And what we learned was having the result didn't create the change required someone to act on it. And so we built in an augmented reality simulator that, based on your vision score, would show half the screen based on the person's vision you just tested and the other half as normal. And that created the behavior change for people to actually understand what it meant to see the visual world of the person you just examined. And it's those kind of things that create the real change, because if you find someone who can't see, who can be treated, that only matters if they act on it or someone acts on it. So we're finding we're able to use these new methods and technologies to provide different social change.
And Bhavagaya, that's very much reflected in what you were saying, I guess. Are there any other applications of AI that you think will be coming in the future?
I think definitely in terms of being able to be an enabler for healthcare professionals, is what I'm seeing more and more. We have probably about 30,000 pieces of research that are published every single day. We know the pace of research totally outstrips the ability for both doctors and scientists to be able to memorize those things and act on them and actually practice against those. So how are we able to use technology to be able to deliver the best care to whether it's patients or customers in any industries and do your best by them? So AI is really paving the way for that. And I guess your previous question about the kind of the changing role with data, we used to value people memorizing textbooks. And I think it's really interesting how actually the skill sets we see and we start to value, be that in healthcare providers or in industry, will be more the things like problem solving, being able to think laterally, the softer skills, as we see technology and the automation of data and evidence sets being able to be hugely accessible either through platforms like Alexa and voice recognition or just through the touch of a button. So being able to kind of switch that narrative, I think, is quite exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting that, you know, the whole idea of the changing nature of society, you know, we didn't have weekends 100 years ago, and now, you know, perhaps even the very nature of the way we educate people will change, because we don't need people to remember stuff by rote anymore. So again, tech for good. Giles, I mean, there is a role for hardware, obviously, and how do you make sure that just, you know, particularly, for example, your app is all about, or your technology is all about providing addresses for people who don't necessarily have addresses, but how do you make sure that they've got the technology to know what they're connected to, you know, a phone?
Sure. So we, so the system requires a piece of hardware to function, but you don't need that piece of hardware at every stage of the journey, of the experience. So the UN say there's about 4 billion people in the world that don't have an address, which means that they're essentially invisible to the state. It means they can't vote, they can't get aid, they can't get deliveries, it's difficult to set up a bank account. Kind of that sort of stuff. They've also said that it's about 75% of the countries in the world don't have a well-maintained addressing system, and that's just like home addresses. That's not everywhere else everywhere else in the world. And so we give our tech away free to aid humanitarian and not-for-profit, so they can do this. Some of the initiatives that we're doing in Durban, for example, in township in Durban, is we are going out and we took a CNC machine, like a drill bit machine, and we took it out and we put it in the community central square. People who lived there, residents came and they found the 3-word address of their home in these informal settlements, and they printed their 3-word address, which they stuck on their door. Now, we've been working with a charity over there who do emergency vehicle response at ambulances. There's a lot of gender-based violence, and a lot of women die in childbirth because ambulances can't find them. And they stuck their 3-word addresses on their doors. We trained all the ambulance drivers so they could recognize a 3-word address and they could use the app. Now, those residents didn't need to have a telephone or a smartphone to report a problem. They could phone up on a landline or on a dumb phone or text message and say, "I've got a problem at table, chair, lamp," and the ambulance guy or woman can find them. So, yeah, hardware needs to be part of the system, but it's not a requirement at every single stage.
It's incredible to think, that something as simple as 3 words can make such a big impact on people's lives. Sandeep, what else do you see making, the impact from the technologies that you're looking to help develop and stuff? I don't know. There's all sorts of strange AIs going on in the room at the moment. I'm a little bit nervous. It's the rise of the robots.
Yeah, really good question. Trying to think about the number of opportunities we see today, and I think we've talked about Internet of Things as an example, and so many things are now becoming more connected and intelligent. You can imagine, the world we live, even in the consumer world, where you have more and more devices connected that can then actually act and do things on your behalf. I think that will help change the way we live, even for elderly monitoring, elderly care. We're seeing lots of exciting products and services coming through that we think, will make a difference in people's homes and actually make their lives a lot easier as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As an investor, Paul, because one of the biggest problems I think with the tech industry is we tend to have these bubbles that, kind of blow up, and then people talk about unicorns and, and all of this kind of, how do you sort through that kind of like the hype? Because it must be easy to be tempted to jump on board a hype train.
Well, you definitely see that hype cycle. At the moment, it's all about blockchain in terms of, everybody seems to be managing to work blockchain into their business plan and into their slides, no matter what they're doing.
Do they actually know what it means, though? No.
For us as investors, you just have to cut through and work out what's the actual value to the user, to the end customer. And if that doesn't exist, then there is no business there. There is no real venture there. So I absolutely agree with Andrew that you've got to start with that sort of human factor. If you're like, does this really provide value? Does it improve the lives of somebody? And if you can see that, then there's something investable there. And obviously, then you've got the team and so on to consider as well. But that's our starting point. Is there an actual positive value to society and to individuals in this product?
Great. And last question to Jon. I really have to, I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. I know I'm 2 minutes over, sorry, Mark. I really want to sort of just dig into your knowledge about Mobile World Congress, because you were at, what is arguably the biggest mobile sort of expo around the year. Was there anything actually new on display, and particularly anything that does good? Because it seems to me that in recent years, anyway, mobile phone industry has been all about how we can rebox what you had last year and charge you a bit more for it.
Well, yeah, just to a certain extent, that's what Mobile World Congress is all about. But there was a lot of news about 5G, of course, and how connectivity is getting faster and more responsive. But also a couple of little things that I've noticed over the last few months and at MWC last week is how that AI is building into the devices in your pocket. For example, Huawei out there were demonstrating how their dynamic scene recognition, for instance, was able to identify a dog or a cat or food or whatever. In this instance, it was a dog, and the phone was controlling a car, which then swerved out of the way of the dog. So you can see where that's going in the future. Putting AI into devices, into phones, maybe into ultimately cars, could save lives. in dynamic sort of processing those scenes all the time. And so you won't necessarily steer the car around, say, a cardboard box in the road, but certainly would steer around a child or you know, or an elderly person.
Right, yeah. Excellent. I hope any person.
Well, any person, yes. Not being discriminative.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, we have literally run over by 3 minutes and 44 seconds. Sorry about that. Please put your hands together and say thank you to Andrew, Giles, Paul, Bhavagaya, Jon and